and for your patience in us trying to get you on the line. A victory for the family, but I'm sure that it's the kind of victory that they wish they didn't have to have fought for. Your thoughts on the court ruling?
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to the listeners. Again, sorry, I was out for my morning run. Yes, indeed. We received with very great satisfaction and joy the ruling of the Supreme Court of South Africa that our sixth late Republican President, Edgar Lungu's remains should be in the hands of the family, and that the family have the last say about where he is to be buried. This, I totally, excuse me, I totally agree with you. This is one of the most unnecessary litigations that the Zambian government has had to go into. And obviously, if the costs we're hearing about are anything to go by, something that the taxpayers need not necessarily be paying on behalf of government, the president of the country, Hakainde Hichilema, moved his attorney general to come and start a litigation against the family over the remains of the late president, totally against the wishes of the family, against the wishes of the majority of the Zambians. This could have been resolved as early as 2 weeks into the death or the demise of Edgar Lungu. The problem is our president here, Hakainde Hichilema, was insisting that he needed to be present at the funeral personally. The request and the wish of the late president was that Hakainde Hichilema, who had treated him very badly, should not be present. Not that the government could not honor him. And some of us had tried several times to mediate and talk to other people to ensure that the government tells the president to stay away. The vice president could have easily been present, and the government could have been represented accordingly.
I'm sure that it's not the first choice for the family to bury former President Lungu in South Africa. Is there any chance now, with all of these court rulings, that he may be laid to rest, perhaps in a private ceremony in Zambia, or is that not a possibility?
Well, we're only happy that the elections are coming up on the 13th of August. Our prayer is that Hakainde Hichilema, who is seemingly going to lose these elections as things are going, will obviously just give us a bit more time and ensure that as we get into the campaign period and after the elections, we can then bring back the remains of the late president back home. I know that the family, some of whom I've spoken to personally, have never wished that our late president lie in South Africa or be buried in South Africa, but it has always been the wish that he be brought back home, he be given a dignified burial as former commander-in-chief, but obviously not that Hakainde must be present. That was his wish, and I think we must honor that wish. Hakainde Hichilema has put himself in this position. He cannot blame anybody. It's not a government problem. It is a personal problem which existed between the late president and Hakainde Hichilema as a person, as an individual.
What do you say to the argument that former President Edgar Lungu belongs to the people of Zambia more than the family, even though, yes, the family does have rights? When you assume an office like the presidency, that perhaps the country comes first, and that he should his burial and laying to rest becomes a state affair.
I totally agree with you, Peter, if the situation were normal. Unfortunately, with regard to the late Edgar Lungu, we're not dealing with a normal situation. The late president had been stripped of his privileges. He had been stripped of all his privileges as president. His security had been removed. He had been moved out of a state paid for home. His allowances were removed. Everything that was going with the former president's office had been removed by Hakainde Hichilema's government. So at the time of his death, unfortunately, he died an ordinary person because the government didn't want to be responsible over him. So they cannot posthumously come and give him the rights and benefits when he has died. It's a mockery. I think the law is very clear. I don't want to speak legally because some people may not be lawyers on your channel here, but it's as simple as a dead person has no rights. So you can't go and start giving a dead person, benefits and things like that, which you had denied him when he was alive. So unfortunately for Hakainde Hichilema, he was between a rock and a hard place. He had himself in sixes and sevens, and that's why this situation has arisen.
Talking about the law, is it not law in Zambia that, yes, once you retire or leave office as president, you can enjoy those rights and benefits for as long as you don't re-enter politics? And clearly, former President Lungu did re-enter politics. And doesn't that then strip him of those privileges that you said were taken away from him?
A very good question, Peter. But the problem is, who pushed Lungu to come back into politics? You see, as a former head of state, Lungu had resigned from politics. He had gone to stay in a very small, secluded section of our Lusaka community in Ibex Hill. He was very happy. His wife then got arrested on flimsy grounds, on flimsy charges, being alleged to have stolen a small Toyota motor vehicle. His daughter, Tasila, was being harassed left, right, and center off some of her property. His other daughter, Chiesu, was being harangued and harassed over properties. His son, Dadiso, was being harassed left, right, and center. So the whole family was dragged into court, and the whole thing became a mess. I am not saying here for a moment that if a crime is committed, that the first former family must be let loose simply because they are the first former family. However, out of respect and out of a sense of the dignity of the former office of the presidency, one would have thought Hakainde Hichilema and his government could have found a better way of dealing with former Lungu's family. So when Lungu, the late president, felt that his family was being fought all because of him and because he had left office, the political office, he needed to come back to defend the honor of his wife, the honor of his children, and the dignity of the family. No one can blame him for that. So he was pushed to come back into politics by the Hakainde Hichilema and his government. So you may have a point that he should have stayed out of politics, and we all agree, which he did by resigning from the Patriotic Front and staying in a corner. But no man in his right senses, Peter, would have his wife being dragged to court, his children being dragged to court, no matter the circumstances, and he just folds his arms and says, well, go ahead and do what you want. No man, no reasonable man that I know in Africa would do that. You have to fight. And the only way he knew how to fight, to protect and defend his family, was using politics. So that's why he came back.
Mr. Bwalya, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us on this sensitive
Thank you very much, Peter. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Kelvin Fube Bwalya, Zambian lawyer and leader of the Zambia Must Prosper party, who had close relations with the late Zambian President Edgar Lungu. It's 7:30. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Jwalani